Hello and welcome to Mad About Sports for yet another live stream. And here we are, just few minutes away from the big clash, which is India and Australia, the most awaited clash of this World Cup because it is a host nation in action. India playing a World Cup in India, opening match in Chennai against Australia. Now, it's not often that a Chennai crowd who dons blue to support a yellow team in action. But today you're going to see that as the Chennai crowd will be having the blue wave and they will be against the yellow team in action. But for Australia, they'll definitely take happy memories from that game which was played earlier this year between India and Australia, where Australia went on to defeat India to clinch that one-day series as well. So here we are live on Mad About Sports to talk about today's game. Now, when we talk about today's game, the most important factor is gonna be who is gonna play in today's game. The biggest news is that whatever we are getting is Shubman Gill might not be playing today. So what that means is it opens up an avenue for someone like Nishan Kishan. Now, how big is that going to be? We can definitely find out. From whatever we're getting, Shubman Gill might not be playing in today's game. So that's the biggest news what we have coming in, and that is going to be a big starter. Now, if you look at all this World Cup has kicked off in a manner which a lot of teams have gotten off to flying starts and bigger margins. The four games, four one-sided games, as one would like to say so. You saw New Zealand triumph over England. You saw Pakistan win quite comfortably against Netherlands at the end of the day. Then you saw Bangladesh win over Afghanistan quite comfortably, and South Africa imposing their dominance on Sri Lanka. So four one-sided games, and hopefully we have a strong contest. Maybe Indian fans would want to have a one-sided win, but maybe if you're a cricket neutral, you'd want to see two teams lock horns and game going down to the last few overs. Especially 50 overs, you barely see nail biters these days. But if you really want to say, maybe this could be one of the contests in which the game could go down the wire, and maybe this could be a game where you might see one ultimate winner take it all with scuff of the neck, as one would like to say so. But what are the main things to look out for in today's game, isn't it? Now, when we speak about today's main players, now one player which comes into a lot of mind is uh, hi there, Prakash. Who will open Ishan Kishan? Yes, it looks like Ishan Kishan at this moment at least, because yeah, whatever we're knowing is that Ishan Kishan will be the opener. But let's just wait for the playing 11, because how do you feel? To have a left field choice as well, because there were few people suggesting that Virat Kohli should open and Surya Kumar Yadav can play in the 11, but those are still up in the air. We do not know what the air is like at this point when it comes to the camp, how they want to prepare for this game. They would like to have Nishan Kishan for a couple of other reasons as well. A left-hander up top, he gives a lot more dynamism. He's an aggressive batter. If he can give India a good start, that really helps India. You want to make sure that you get off to a good start against a team like Australia. You want to impose your dominance and you want to be at your A game from the very word go. So this is where I think the most important factor for India is going to be how you really take it all and soak it all in, and then you take it to the next level. For India, the most important players to watch out for today is going to be definitely Kuldeep Yadav is one, playing in Chennai. Remember, whatever he has shown in the recent past has been outstanding as well. And he's got a good record. And remember, how he has gotten 150 wickets at an exceedingly well strike rate at a very young career. Remember, he was a star in 2017-18 and then lost his touch a little bit in 2019 and had to make a comeback in 2021. And since then, he's not really looked behind. It's a different version of Kuldeep Yadav. We've spoken about it multiple times on the stream. But once again, playing in Chennai, bigger square boundaries, really helps the spinner. If you look back how Chennai Super Kings has had the dominance in Chennai, it's always been getting the spinners involved, and to add to that, having longer square boundaries. So for bowlers at least, it's going to be a happy hunting ground, because you don't see in Chennai bowlers being tonged around for fun. Bowlers always makes a way to come back into it. Now, if it's a turning Chennai pitch, then there is always going to be bowlers in the game. But from what we've gotten the news out of Chennai is that the last few days it's been raining quite a bit on and off, so we do not know what the conditions are. The pitch has been really sweaty under the covers, so if you have to go by that, maybe the pitch could be slightly tackier to start off with. Maybe then it might get better as the game progresses. On that case, you might want to ball first and maybe get the best out of condition towards the middle of the game, towards the second half of the game as well. Now, the dew is a major factor, which a lot of captains maybe tend to go into ball first and maybe bat second. But in Chennai, one other factor is that come the 35th, 40th over of a game, we've always seen the Chennai pitch slow down drastically. Now, over the years, and especially in the recent past, even if you have to go back to that one day which India and Australia played earlier this year, the decider between India and Australia, you saw towards the 35th, 40th over, India did get off to a good start, and India were in control of the chase. But India did fall off very, very drastically during that period as well, because the ball tends to slow, and there was where Adam Zampa or Ashton Agar in that game came and dominated. Here, once again, Glenn Maxwell, that game against Rajkot, you saw that when once the Rajkot pitch started holding up a little bit towards the second half of the game, Australian spinners were in the game, and especially Maxwell. He has been doing well against India in the recent past, both with the bat and with the ball. So for India, the most important factor is going to be how India will play spin. Now we know India there's some really good players who spin. We talk about someone like a Shreyas Iyer, a KL Rahul, or even Shubman Gill whenever he used to play. He was a good player spin. But like players like Virat Kohli for that matter, or Hardik Pandya, they tend to take a time a little bit and they tend to get stuck in the crease slightly. You saw that in the innings of Virat Kohli in Rajkot as well. He got off to brilliant start scoring the first 40 runs, but that phase where Glenn Maxwell was operating with the ball, Virat Kohli's strike rate came down drastically, which really made them play that pull shot which got the top edge and he was caught. So that's what it is. Ultimately, it comes down to how India are going to play spin in this factors. But ideally, on a good circumstance, India would want to bat first. India would want to bat first, maybe score an extra of 300 and feel like, okay, wait a minute, we've done a good job and we can come out and defend. In Chennai, when you score 300, you get that vibe or that you've done a good job. That's been the case with Chennai always. Chennai is this ground where you can tend to go out there and score runs, and then you can defend it quite comfortably because of the biggest square boundaries. And if there's a lot of wind around with the rain around, you might not see dew as well. So for India, on an ideal circumstance, given the fact that you don't want to take that extra bit of risk, India would want to bat first, be on the safer side, and then if India are bowling first, it's going to be interesting to see how India goes about it. So that's where things are going to be very interesting in today's game as well. Now, let's talk about some of the bigger factors here, isn't it? Now, when you talk about the bigger factors here, it is definitely Virat Kohli. Virat Kohli against Australia, phenomenal record, outstanding record. One would like to say so. He has been the player to watch out for again, especially against teams like Australia. How he really goes about it is going to definitely judge how Indian team performs as well. Now, historically, he's had a phenomenal record. Recent past, he's just coming off 50 against Australia as well. Had a good time in Asia Cup. So once again, it comes down to Virat Kohli at number three. In grounds like Chennai, I think Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli will have to play big because the top three always tends to do well in Chennai, and that's been the case historically as well. Because the Chennai is such a pitch that towards the lat it gets hard for stroke making. If it is traditional nature of the pitch, it gets hard for stroke making. So you would want your top three to continue batting well. The top three will have to assure dominance. But if India has a collapse, so no matter if India loses 2 to 3 quick wickets, how important is it going to be for someone like a KL Rahul, Shreyas Iyer, Hardik Pandya, and Jadeja to do a job as well? For them as well, it depends on the entry points. Now, entry point is such a big factor in Chennai ground. Who can come in and start going from the very first ball without taking much of a time, especially if you're setting a total on the board. Now, if you look historically as well, the games in Chennai, you always seen players with excessive amount of power coming and doing well. So that is where I think India will have to look at who can come and do well in these kind of situations because if you look at Russell or if you look at Dhoni, whoever had done well in Chennai, these people are the ones who have excessive amount of power, who can come and make those shots and get going from the very first ball. So that is where India will have to make sure entry points of every player is demarcated pretty well, so it doesn't really cause India an issue, especially if they're setting a target. Then if you have to talk about big scores, right? In Chennai, the big scores have always scored by top three. If you look at likes of Faf du Plessis, Suresh, it's always been the top three who has dominated. Let it be a T20 game. If you have to go to a one-day game as well, if the last game which India played, Mitchell Marsh opening the batting scored a brilliant 80 against India in Chennai. So once again, it comes down to the players who scored the runs up top and how important it is going to be for them to really take it on to the next one. Now, for players, especially if you have to talk about the top order of India or the middle order of India, it's going to be an interesting balance as well. If you're going to see someone like a Shreyas Iyer walk at number 4, how important it is going to be for him to tackle someone like a Glenn Maxwell, Adam Zampa. Because you don't want this 20 overs to be squeezed out by Australia. You would want to be extremely proactive, take those risks, and make sure that one of them is unsettled. Especially Glenn Maxwell will be a target for someone like a Shreyas Iyer, off spinner coming into him. He would want to target him. But for India as well, to make sure how they use their batters against spin, because you know what you're going to get from Mitchell Stark, Hazelwood, and Patrick Cummins. But those 20 overs is where India will have to really capitalize. Because if you're going to let the spinners also control you, that'll put added amount of pressure for India. If you go back to that one day which happened between India and Australia in Chennai earlier this year, one of the bigger factors which really caused havoc for India was that India let their spinners control the innings, and that really did not do India any good if you look at the longer run. And that really made sure that India went down in a very crippling way. So that is one factor. That if you talk about Australian team, their batting, I think it comes down to this man, isn't it? It has to come down to this man. How he has done well in India historically. If you talk about his performances in India, it's been outstanding, and especially against India, or he's been just seeing a David Warner's next version, in one day cricket in the recent past. Extremely attacking, looking to go for all guns blazing in the power play. You saw a phase where David Warner was taking a slight bit of time before to get going, but he's really changed that. Now you're looking at a David Warner who wants to get going from the very first ball, and he's trying to impose it on the oppositions. If you look at how Mitchell Marsh and David Warner have gotten off to great starts in this World Cup, it comes down to the fact that how these both players have been extremely dominant in terms of their performances. If you look at their performances in the recent past, one of the factors is that left hand right hand combination and their attacking intent, and that's put a lot of teams on the back foot as well. You have to just pick up teams like South Africa, and if you look at the way in which how they played against India in the one day series as well, that does put teams on the back foot. And I think that's going to be a massive factor. David Warner against India, but does India have a weapon up their sleeve? Would India want to throw in someone like a Ravichandran Ashwin in the power play and saying that, okay, maybe go out there and get David Warner out? That those are factors which India can think about going into today's game, because you want to be out of the box in games like this. You want to really counter a particular player, and you don't want players like David Warner to play big, because start of the World Cup, David Warner is a player who starts off tournaments with a blaze, and you would want to stop him ASAP. And then you would have a Mitchell Marsh factor to counter, but nobody's talking about it. But one player who might be coming in handy and which India will have to be extremely wary of is someone like Manas Labuschagne. Now, why we're talking about Manas Labuschagne is because how his potential to just go out there and rotate strike really matters. He might score runs without even people realizing. He scores those 40, 50 runs, but that could be decisive. And that is where I think Manas Labuschagne, Glenn Maxwell, the number 4, number 5 for Australia, they're going to hold big aces for Australia, and India will have to really control them. And I think Kuldeep Yadav is going to be a massive factor in today's game because of that. How he balls to the middle order bats, how he controls them, making sure they don't get away. Because remember, Australia's weapon against spin is going to be Glenn Maxwell. And Glenn Maxwell has got a negative matchup against Ravindra Jadeja. If you look, one player who Maxwell always dreaded facing, even in IPL, even wherever in international cricket, has been Ravindra Jadeja, and maybe add to that Jasprit Bumrah as well. These two players have been Maxwell's biggest nemesis over the years, and that's why India will have to make sure how they bring. Uh, okay, yeah, we will talk in हिंदी में भी बात कर सकते हैं. सो वही बात कर रहा था हम कि जिस तरीके से ऑस्ट्रेलिया का टीम भी अभी आ चुका है चेन्नई, और आप देखिएगा तो और पिछले सीरीज में भी जिस तरीके से ऑस्ट्रेलिया खेला है, और वार्म अप गेम्स में भी आप देखा होगा कि ग्लेन मैक्सवेल ने अच्छी अच्छी प्रदर्शन किया था पाकिस्तान के खिलाफ, स्पेशली द वे इन व्हिच हाउ ग्लेन मैक्सवेल स्टार्टेड ऑफ अगेंस्ट पाकिस्तान. You have to be looking at Glenn Maxwell as a massive factor in this game. और भी आप देख सकते हो तो मानस लाबुशेन भी एक फैक्टर हो सकता है इस गेम में, क्योंकि मानस लाबुशेन भी अच्छी तरीके से खेलता है राजकोट वाले गेम में भी, और इसके स्पिन के खिलाफ भी गेम बहुत अच्छा है. तो वही कारण मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि ग्लेन मैक्सवेल और मानस लाबुशेन दो ऐसा प्लेयर्स हो सकता है आज के गेम में वो बदल सकता है, क्योंकि नंबर 4 नंबर 5 का पोजीशन बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट, बहुत मेहनत रखता है ऐसे गेम्स में. सो yeah, talking about the best teams, I think the fantasy players, especially you can go for today's games. One out of the box, as I mentioned, is going to be Manas Labuschagne. A lot of people don't pick him, but he can be a factor in your team. And a lot of common picks for today's game is going to be Kuldeep Yadav, Jasprit Bumrah, and you talk about Adam Zampa. These are the common picks, but आपको अच्छी तरीके से एक्स फैक्टर पिक्स चाहिए जो आके गेम बदला सकता है. वो एक तो ग्लेन मैक्सवेल तो होना ही चाहिए आपके टीम में, क्योंकि चेन्नई में भी खेल रहा है, और उसके ऊपर जिस तरीके का स्पिन का गेम में भी है. मतलब ग्लेन मैक्सवेल का रिकॉर्ड चेन्नई में उतना खास नहीं है, पर फिर भी आप उसका स्पिन का गेम देखिए. 2021 में जब भी आरसीबी ने चेन्नई में खेला था, ग्लेन मैक्सवेल अच्छी प्रदर्शन किए थे, तो उसी कारण मैं बोला ग्लेन मैक्सवेल को रख सकते हैं आपके टीम में. और देन इफ यू हैव टू गो एंड लुक एट अदर ऑप्शंस, यू कैन लुक एट, yeah, you can possibly go in with the Ishan Kishan as well. A lot of people might not be looking at Ishan Kishan. If he's going to play in today's game, not a bad option to have in your team. Can score good 30. Maybe if he goes on to score big, a great up in your team, because he's someone who will be scoring runs and runs very quickly, and he might be giving you that extra bit of points as well if you're looking at it from fantasy side of view. And talking about the match as well, Ishan Kishan will have a lot of responsibility to give that start for India. If Ishan Kishan can get off to a good start, if Ishan Kishan can give good 45-50 runs for India, you might not have to go out there and score big like what Shubman does. But if you can go out there and score 45-50 runs alongside Rohit, now you know one thing about Rohit and Ishan is that they complement each other pretty well as well for the Mumbai camp, because they have got chemistry of playing with each other. But definitely you can see Rohit and Shubman has been the two main players who've scored multiple hundred partnerships and who's been fine form. But you can't replace them. But at least for this very factor, you can say maybe it's not a bad idea to go in with them. Maybe Ishan could be the aggressor. Rohit can slightly take a little bit of time and get going, or either way. So one can take the role or the other, because they know how each other is bad from their games, whatever they play in Mumbai Indians, and they complement each other well. But now coming to the very factor of how Hardik Pandya is going to be for today's game. Now, if you look at how Hardik Pandya has performed, going back to that game in 2017 against Australia, where Hardik was a phenomenal player of spinner. But now, if you look at recent times, Hardik's game against spin has deteriorated quite badly, and it could be because of various reasons. Post his injury, he has preferred facing pace a lot more in comparison to spin. It tends to take a lot more time against spin, and he tends to lose his wicket quite cheaply to spin as well. So once again, I think if Hardik has to come and do a finishing role, or if Hardik has to come in a chasing position where he'll have to take the team over the line, I think the factor is going to be how Hardik plays the likes of Adam Zampa and Glenn Maxwell. If Hardik can really help them, if Hardik can really get control of them, this could be an interesting factor in today's game. And once again, coming down to the factor of Ravindra Jadeja, I know it's been a concern that Ravindra Jadeja hasn't been India's best bet with the bat, but you just have to put that baby behind and look at what you have in the offering. Maybe it's not a bad option. Maybe to promote Ravindra Jadeja to take on someone like an Adam Zampa, because at the end of the day, one thing which I've often seen with Ravindra Jadeja is that whenever you give him that higher position with the bat, he tends to do better as well. So these could be one of the factors. Look at all the possibilities. You have to look at who all India can fit into the right middle order. Maybe use a little bit of flexibility. Maybe help Ravindra Jadeja to go up the order to tackle someone like Adam Zampa, but then at the same time you might have to counter Glenn Maxwell. So India will have to be wary in terms of using this, but ideally, so the best spin players, like you have talked about KL Rahul or Shreyas Iyer, these players will have an important role in today's game, considering the game is in Chennai and considering how India would want to go out there and maybe dominate the Australian spinners, how India would like to do, because you don't want Australia to come in and settle down using spin against India. So guys, that's about it from us for today. And do remember to check out our courses with Mad About Sports. The link is down in the description, and also to subscribe to our channel and be back here almost before every big game. And we'll be doing a lot more videos on football and cricket. So stay tuned, and also for our Instagram page for all the latest updates on sports. Take care and see you all very soon. Bye bye.